Is in the Bible in 1 Samuel 25, and anyway, I guess all in 1 Samuel. You got to read the whole thing, but I'm going to read this, and I'm going to talk about, there is a person in the Bible, her name is Abigail. Okay, I'm reading it. I'm reading about her in my insight in the scriptures book here. Okay, and it says, I'm just going to read a little bit about this. A wife of David. So Abigail was a wife of King David. Originally, the wife of wealthy Nabal from Maon, a city on the edge of the wilderness of Judah, with the Dead Sea. Okay, she was good in her discretion and beautiful in form, while her first husband, whose name means senseless and stupid, was harsh and bad in his practices. Okay, so it says, following the prophet Samuel's death, David and his men moved into the area where the flocks of Abigail's husband were pastured. David's men thereafter were like a protective wall around Nabal's shepherds and flocks, night and day. So when shearing time came, David sent some young men up to Carmel to call Nabal's attention to the good service rendered him and to request an offering of food from him. So basically, this was during a time when King David and his men were monitoring the area. They were, looking out for the flock, and they were by default also helping Nabal and his flock. So they were pasturing them. They were keeping them from, going too far, and of course times were so different back in Bible times. Okay. So they didn't have no what do they call them? Those remote planes or whatever, looking down, they had to actually be on the ground, feet on the ground, and actually be making sure that everybody stayed, and that their sheep and stuff didn't go off and go astray. So they were doing that for them, and they were basically doing it because they were already, they were at this time, they were not outlaws, I don't know how to say it, but that's what they were doing. They were out there doing that. So it's King David and his men, they were doing that. And they were doing that to be nice, okay, to this wealthy man. And so then it came time to share some food, and they said, okay, we've been doing this work, or we've done this work. Can we come and get some food? Can you give us some grain and give us something to, basically to say thank you for looking out for your flock, right? Okay. So, that's what they did. They asked this wealthy man named Nabal to do that for them. A request of offering of food. But miserably, Nabal screamed rebukes at them and insulted David as if he were an inconsequential person, and all of them as if they were possibly runaway slaves. So he was haughty, and he was basically saying who are you? You're nothing. Y'all are nothing. Y'all are probably runaway slaves, and I don't need you, and I didn't ask you for your help, whatever. Okay, this is what he was saying. He basically just rebuked them. Okay, and this angered King David, but it was David at the time. So that he girded on his sword and led about 400 men towards Carmel to wipe him out. It says to wipe out Nabal and the men of his household. So I'm gonna read this one here. I'm gonna read it. This is in 1 Samuel chapter 25, verses 12 and 13. I'm gonna actually read it though. Okay, so I'm just gonna read it, the actual scriptures, just so you can hear it. It says, at that, David's young men returned and reported all these words to him. David immediately said to his men, everyone strap on your sword. So they all strapped on their swords, and David also strapped on his sword, and about 400 men went up with David, while 200 men stayed with the baggage. Okay, so basically David was like, you know what? It's about to get, crazy up in here. We about to go and kill some people, basically. Because, King David was about that life, okay? This is the reason why he couldn't build the temple, because he did too many holy wars for Jehovah's namesake, right? But that's what he was known for, okay? He was known for bloodshed, okay? So he was, not playing. He was like, oh, okay, we did this for you. You don't want to appreciate me? You want to act a fool? You want to be haughty and act like you don't? Okay. So he was coming out. He was coming after them. Now, how did Abigail respond? Abigail, hearing of the incident through a disturbed servant, So some servant came back and told her what was happening, showed her wise perception by immediately rounding up an ample supply of food and grain, and then sent these ahead of her in care of her servants, much as Jacob had done before making contact with Esau. Which, if you remember, Esau and Jacob and how they had the feud or whatever, but when Jacob came back and he didn't want Esau to kill him again, he had sent gifts and stuff in advance to calm him down. Okay, so that's what they're referring to there. Okay, so basically Abigail, this wealthy man's wife, heard what was going on and how her husband was a hot mess, and responded with such haughtiness or whatever, and she took it upon herself. She said, nah, let me get this food and stuff together, and sent it with the slaves over there ahead and be like, here, give him something to eat, because I'm not trying to get killed, basically. Okay, so she did that on her own. This is what Abigail did. She was very smart, is what she was. Okay, and so without saying anything to her husband, she rode to meet David. And in a long and fervent plea, which manifested wisdom and logic, as well as a respect and humility, she convinced David that her husband's senseless words did not justify the unrighteous shedding of blood or the failure to trust in Jehovah to settle the matter in the right way himself. Okay, so now, basically, okay, let me see if I'm going to read this part in the Bible. Okay, so now I'm going to read it in the Bible, what they just said. Okay, so meanwhile, one of the servants reported to Abigail, Nabal's wife, look, David sent messengers from the wilderness to wish our master well, but he screamed insults at him. Those men were very good to us. They never harmed us, and we did not miss a single thing the whole time we were together with them in the fields. They were like a protective wall around us, both by day and night. The whole time we were with them shepherding the flock. Now, decide what you are going to do, for disaster has been determined against our master and against this house. And he is such a worthless man that no one can speak to him. Can you imagine being married to somebody like that? Nobody can speak to them? So Abigail quickly took 200 loaves of bread and 2 large jars of wine, 5 dressed sheep and 5 seah measures of roasted grain, 100 cakes of raisins, 200 cakes of pressed figs, and put all of it on the donkeys. And then she said to her servants, go ahead of me, I will follow you. But she said nothing to her husband. While she was riding on the donkey and going down under cover of the mountains, just then David and his men were coming down towards her, and she met them. Okay. Now the next part. When Abigail caught sight of David, she hurried down off the donkey and threw herself face down before David, bowing to the ground. She then fell at his feet and said, my lord, let the blame be on me. Let your servant girl speak to you, and listen to the words of your servant girl. Please do not let my lord pay attention to this worthless Nabal, for he is just like his name. Nabal is his name, and senseless is with him. But I, your servant girl, did not see my lord's young men whom you sent. And now, my lord, as surely as Jehovah is living, and as you are living, it is Jehovah who has held you back from incurring blood guilt and from taking revenge with your own hand. May your enemies and those seeking injury to my lord become like Nabal. Now let this gift that your servant girl has brought to my lord be given to the young men who are following my lord. Pardon, please, the transgression of your servant girl, for Jehovah will without fail make for my lord a lasting house, because my lord is fighting the wars of Jehovah, and no evil has been found in your days. So when someone rises up to pursue you and seeks your life, the life of my lord will be wrapped securely in the bag of life with Jehovah your God, and the lives of your enemies he will hurl away like stones from a sling. This is what she's telling David. She's all saying this to David. And when Jehovah has done my Lord all the good things he has promised, and he appoints you as leader over Israel. So she was absolutely respecting that he was going to become king. Okay. He was fighting these holy wars, and she was offering her respect for, who she knew he was going to be. Okay, it says, you will have no remorse or regret in your heart for shedding blood without cause and for letting the hand of my Lord take revenge. When Jehovah confers good upon my Lord, remember your servant girl. So what she was really essentially doing was basically saying to him, okay, David, I know you have the right to be upset, and I know you're fighting these holy wars, but you're going to be a king one day. You're going to be sitting back, and you're going to be thinking about everybody who you shed blood. And do you really want to shed blood on innocent people? Because I'm innocent. I got a stupid husband. He's dumb, but I'm innocent, and the rest of the household is innocent. So, you don't want to be blood guilty upon Jehovah, because Jehovah didn't tell you to kill us. Okay? She did it in a very respectful, loving, humble way, because the Bible says she bowed down and called him Lord, and she showed respect, right? She showed respect. So, basically, David thanked God for the woman's good sense and quick action. Okay, so let's see that part. It says, at this, David said to Abigail, praise Jehovah, the God of Israel, who sent you this day to meet me, and blessed be your good sense. May you be blessed for restraining me this day from incurring blood guilt and from taking revenge with my own hands. Otherwise, as surely as Jehovah, the God of Israel, who held me back from harming you, is living, if you had not come quickly to meet me, by morning there would have not remained a single male belonging to Nabal. With that, David accepted from her what she had brought him and said to her, go up in peace to your house. See, I have listened to you, and I will grant your request. So that was a smart woman. She was a very smart woman. She was clearly smarter than her husband. So returning home, Abigail waited for her husband to sober up from a drunken feast, because this man was known to be drunk all the time, and then informed him of her actions. Now his heart came to be dead inside of him, and he himself became as a stone. And after 10 days, Jehovah caused him to expire. When the news reached David, he sent a marriage proposal to Abigail, which she did not hesitate to accept. She shared David's affections along with this other woman. No, I can't. I know him. I don't know. I can't say that name. Whom David had previously taken as a wife. David's first wife, Michal, had already been given by her father. Back then, they had many wives. I don't know how to keep up with all that, but, it was different back then. Anyway, the point is that when she came home, she told her husband, and the Bible actually says that, he was good for nothing. It actually says in the Bible that Jehovah stopped his heart. It says, let me see if I can find that part in here. This is in Samuel 25, 36 and 4. Abigail later went back to Nabal, who was feasting like a king in his own house. Little did he know she was about to marry a king, but anyway. Nabal was in a good mood and was as drunk as could be. And she did not tell him a single thing until the morning light. In the morning, when Nabal was sober, his wife told him these things, and his heart became like a dead man's, and he lay paralyzed like a stone. Woo! Can you imagine being in that prison? Jehovah said, before I kill you, before you die, you're going to know what's going on, and you're going to know how stupid you were. Basically, how ridiculous you acted. Okay? About 10 days later, Jehovah struck Nabal, and he died. Now, this is what the Bible says in 38, that Jehovah struck Nabal, and he died. When David heard that Nabal had died, he said, praise Jehovah. Let me send this woman a marriage proposal, because that's my kind of girl. That's my kind of chick. She is smart. She respects me. Okay, so Jehovah basically said, you know what, Abigail, you deserve a good man. You deserve somebody better. Okay, you're smart. Your head is not, or whatever, and he is good for nothing. Some scriptures say good for nothing, but stupid basically, and he was haughty. And Jehovah looked down at the situation and saw that he was a disrespect to her. He was not doing her justice in his role as the head, as his role as her husband. That he almost got her killed, or the whole family killed. Okay, Jehovah said, nah, this man, he passed judgment on him so fast, and just said, you know what, that's not good. I'm going to upgrade her. I'm about to upgrade her. Okay, so sometimes when times call for it, you know when those times are, because of the fact that sometimes it calls for judgment on a situation, on a partnership, and Jehovah will back you. He will back you, because clearly Jehovah had a big hand in what happened here. He clearly upgraded Abigail, literally, as like, a way, to basically he was like, you did the right thing, so I'm gonna show you my support. And King David offered proposal. She ended up being one of King David's wives. So it was like a bad situation that could have turned deadly, which could have been very negative, ended up turning out to be the biggest upgrade of her life. And I know how that can feel, like, believe me. So sometimes you could be in a situation with somebody who is disrespectful, haughty, or whatever, and you might feel trapped, or you might feel like, everybody's against you, your mother and all these people are, wanting you to do whatever, trying to control you, this, that, and the third. But when Jehovah sees different, and he can see the intentions and the hearts of everybody involved, right? He will support you in making whatever moves you need to make. And he will support you, especially when it comes down to worshiping him or serving him. But clearly, in this case right here, literally, it was like Jehovah wanted her to be upgraded, to be in a different union, because she was married to a good-for-nothing man. And it was not going to be fruitful. She was not going to be able to grow and evolve and live her best life, okay, with this man, if she was going to constantly have to clean up after him, or clean up after his messes, or whatever, the stuff that, whatever misunderstandings I'm sure this probably wasn't even the first incident. This is probably just the one that the Bible talks about, because it affected David, because, of King David, right? So in any case, like, this was a big deal. And what it shows is that, okay, Jehovah doesn't, there's scriptures in the Bible that talk about a divorcing and talk about whatever, that talk about this, that, and the third, right? But you have to have discernment, and you have to have the ability to meditate on the principles. My dad always said this to me. He said to meditate on the principles of Jehovah God. The principle. What was the principle? What was the main point? The point is that Jehovah doesn't want anybody living in turmoil or being in a situation that's going to be emotionally abusive or abusive in any way. Especially, in a situation where somebody is being disloyal, somebody is lying, they're wearing a mask, they are, doing the most, maybe they have secret lovers, maybe they're on the down low. I mean, I've heard of all kinds of things. People, it's like sometimes you'll have situations of somebody who is with somebody, they want, the woman is like secretly in love with another woman or whatever, and yet they don't want to let him go because of the way it looks to the whole family. And it's like, I don't want you to be happy. I'm not gonna let you be happy with me, because actually I'm not even happy with you, but I can't let you be happy with anybody else, especially because it's gonna make me look bad, and it might prove me looking a certain kind of way. See, Jehovah don't like that. That's all haughtiness. That is that's how Nabal was. That's exactly how Nabal was. And he literally judged him as being a good-for-nothing, stupid, senseless man, and he stopped his heart. Because he was like, no, you're going to upgrade. And he was the husband, the head of the household. Okay? And Jehovah clearly saw that it was better for Abigail to upgrade. Okay? So there are times in life or whatever, you got to look at the principle. You got to look at the motivation. You got to look at where people are coming from, their desires. Is it just to control you? Is it just for looking a certain way? Are they haughty? Are they trying to be selfish in their motivations? Like, what is going on? Don't matter if it's your mother. It don't matter if it's your mate. It don't matter if it's your father. It doesn't matter who it is, right? It doesn't really matter. But when you have issues with being enmeshed, when you are enmeshed, it's like you feel like you can't separate or have your own identity. And that is the whole point of, why mothers do this to their sons in particular. And they will try to force their hand in their son's life. It doesn't matter if he's an adult or not, right? But this is definitely a result of being enmeshed, okay? So I bring this up, this whole situation, I bring this up because if you are a Bible reader and you are feeling, you know, like caged in, boxed in with somebody who's abusive or lying, cheating on you or whatever, because you maybe you have kids, or maybe you don't, or maybe you know, maybe you got married to somebody too young, maybe you married somebody, you know, because you felt your hand was forced, or maybe you just, whatever the case, but that person is abusive, okay? And you might be thinking to yourself, like, you know, everybody, you know, because I know of people who go through this. And it's like the mother is overly involved, the father is overly involved, or people are trying to put pressure on this person to stay, even though this person could be hitting or abusing you or whatever. And you might be thinking, like, God says he hates a divorcing. God also hates ugly. It's clear. And there's other situations in the Bible too that show this, that you got to look at the principle. You got to look at the motivation and the principle. God doesn't want anybody to stay in an abusive relationship of any type. Clearly. And women back then were definitely not always elevated, but Jehovah made sure Abigail was elevated because she was smart, because she showed respect and honor, you know, like clearly she was worthy. And so the point is that Jehovah took it upon himself to stop his heart. That's what the Bible says. The Bible says Jehovah stopped his heart, took him out, and so she could upgrade. So what's the point? The point is look at the motivations of the people forcing you or telling you to do this, that, and the third. You have to look at the motivations, okay? And you have to look at the person who is, you know, your mother or whatever, why she's giving you the advice that she is, or why she's saying whatever she's saying, you know, and what are her real issues. And they usually have to do with selfish things, you know, not wanting to change. But this is one thing that I shared with a friend of mine a while ago. The one thing I know for certain about this place called Earth and this thing called life is that life is very short. And things change. And people don't stay. People don't stay. Things don't stay the same. The more you fight change, the harder your life will be. Some people leave too soon. Some people, you know, it's like you can't force anybody to stay, and you can't fight change. So if you are a mama's boy out there, and this is something you might be dealing with, or you have dealt with, or whatever, and if you are a female dealing with a mama's boy, the mama won't be around forever. That is just the way life is. Life continues to move on. We all have a birth date. We all have an expiration, and that's just the truth. And when your mother is no longer in the picture, enforcing certain stipulations and things, how are you going to feel about your life as you look around and what you've accomplished or what you have not accomplished, or what you have done, all in the name of the peer pressure of the family or your mother or your father or whatnot? How are you going to feel when that person is no longer around? You might feel like you've wasted 20, 30 years that you could have been independent, right? So it's something to think about, because people should be encouraged to live independently or interdependently. Like, interdependently is an equal exchange and equal reciprocity.